once again. Welcome back to this week's episode of J at Warp Speed. I know it's been a while. It's been about 2-3 weeks or so, something like that, but I understand. I never said if it was going to be weekly or if it was going to be bi-weekly or monthly or whatever. I said I just wanted to do the podcast. I just wanted to do the show. I just wanted to talk about science fiction stuff, which this podcast is about science fiction stuff, if you couldn't tell from the name J at Warp Speed. If you don't know who I am Jay, or Jason from Zach and Jay's Ticket Stubs podcast, the second best movie podcast on the internet, or the extendededition.com, which is the home, the hub, our news aggregate type of thing for movie and television news. And this is a podcast about science fiction stuff, movies, TV, novels, anything else, all that jazz that I like to talk about. Science fiction. I love the genre, I love the style, I love everything about science fiction, whether it's hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi, space opera sci-fi, military SF stuff. I'm all about all of that stuff. We all love science fiction. It's one of the best genres out there today, ever to be created. Last podcast, I spoke about Stargate SG-1, how I was still watching that. I spoke about Ready Player One, which got some cool news for that. I'll talk about that in a second. Ernest Cline's Ready Player One. I also briefly mentioned that I started reading James S.A. Corey's Leviathan Wakes. I got updates on that as well. But first, Ready Player One. This is a couple weeks old now. I mentioned it on the Ticket Stubs podcast with Zach, that Steven Spielberg is directing Ready Player One. And Steven Spielberg is a fantastic director. We all know this. If you like movies, if you know movies, if you aren't even a movie fanatic, you know Steven Spielberg, you know his work, you know that he is one of the greats. He is legendary. And for me, like I mentioned on the show, is that I am like lukewarm on this idea of Steven Spielberg directing Ready Player One. Not because Spielberg's a bad director, like I just mentioned. He is a fantastic director. He has a huge body of work that is extraordinary. Look at directors in general, right? They may have like one or two just crap movies, and so does Spielberg. He has crap movies as well. But the majority of his movies are pretty good. He's an icon, a legend, and he can make good science fiction. We've seen that with Minority Report or AI. He can make good, compelling science fiction. The problem is, though, my opinion, right? Steven Spielberg, can he make a fun movie? And I asked this to my co-host Zach on the last episode of the podcast, is that, does Steven Spielberg make fun movies? Now, Jurassic Park, I think it's a fun movie, maybe, but it's not about, like, there's no brothership there, there's no heart, like, not heart, but there's no, like, teenage angst bonding. Like, Ready Player One, it's about a nerdy guy, who's in love with a girl, and his best friend, that's in the cyberspace, and it's about a MMO, and super hella nerdy, and there's all these 80s references, so I don't know if Spielberg can get that down properly. I'm sure if he reads the material, which, he's obviously getting a screenplay from Zach Penn, who directed, I believe Zach Penn directed that Atari Game Over documentary, which was awesome, by the way. If you have Netflix or Xbox, I believe it's on Xbox, I watched it on Netflix. If you have not seen this Atari Game Over, check it out. It's super, super good. And Ernest Cline's in that as well. But, excuse me. The Steven Spielberg thing, I don't think he can make a fun movie per se, and the genre of fun that I think Ready Player One is. And I propose, when I saw the list of people who they were thinking about having direct Ready Player One, Spielberg wasn't even on the list. It was Christopher Nolan and a couple other people, but I saw that Robert Zemeckis was on the list of potential directors, and that would have been, in my opinion, the best choice to direct this movie. Back to the Future is such a fun, heartwarming, just a fun, full of heart science fiction movie. And Ready Player One is not that far of a jump. Now, also, Ready Player One has tons of visuals that are going to be needed. Back to the Future had insane visuals for the time. Even to this day, the visuals are insane. So I'm not like Steven Spielberg can't do it. I'm sure he can do it. I'm excited to see what he does with it. But I'm excited. I would have been more excited to see, Zemeckis do it. But that also brings up the issue of who's gonna star in it, who's gonna play Parzival, who's gonna play Artemis, who's gonna come out, and they have to have good chemistry, because also hold on, I just thought of this. Are they gonna do? It's live action, right? It's a live action movie, or if it's an animated movie. If it's a live action movie, which I imagine it is, if they get all these licenses, right, for tracks, I think, or a couple of licenses, mostly just references here and there. You need some Rush tracks. You need to get DeLorean. But here's the thing, though. So when Wade is in the real world, not he's in IRL, he's not in the video game, not in the Oasis or whatever. Is that going to be a real actor? I imagine it is. Who's going to play that actor? Now, when he jacks into the Oasis and he's Parzival and he's a Gunter, is that going to be CG? Is that going to be animated? Or is that going to be also live action? That's a question I have. I didn't think about that question. I didn't think about that until now. Because if that's the case, you're going to need to have two actors play the same guy. And now, do you have a different voice? I don't remember if Parzival's voice was different from Wade's voice. I can't remember exactly. But either way, you're going to need two sets of actors for each actor. For each character. Which I think is fine. Perfectly fine. But how are they going to do that? Is it going to be animated? I'm excited to see what happens. I propose you need to keep it live action. If you have animated in this at all, when it comes to okay, hey, we're jacked in, because most of the movie is going to be in the Oasis, and if that's going to be like animated CG, I think it's guaranteed not going to make any money, or not make a lot of money. I mean, I don't know. Maybe even the fact that it's live action won't, because even though Ready Player One has a total science fiction nerd acclaim, I don't know if necessarily the mass audience of people are going to go want to see a movie called Ready Player One. But once you tie in Steven Spielberg, I imagine they're going to go see it. I mean, if I didn't know the book, and if I was just a movie fan, and I saw Steven Spielberg, I'm going to go see it because it says it's Steven Spielberg. But I'm excited to see what happens in this movie. I'm excited. So that's some news that came out a couple weeks ago. Also a couple weeks ago is that Robotech got acquired by Sony for a possible franchise. Now, I want to be truthful to everybody. I'm a younger guy, right? I never watched Robotech. Robotech wasn't around when I was growing up. We just had Gundam and Evangelion and this other mecha anime were there. Robotech is an 80s thing, and we didn't have that when I grew up in the late 90s type thing. And there was no Robotech wasn't around. They had the movie came out. Was Shadow of Something came out. I never watched it, but I saw it was out. But we had Gundam, hella Gundams. We had the Gundam Wing and all that stuff was out on US TV. I watched a bunch of Macross, which I know Macross is a part of Robotech. But I never watched the Robotech version of Robotech. I never watched the American mashup series. I'm down though. I'm 100% okay with this. I know a lot of people were online giving a lot of backlash at this, saying Sony, especially after all the Sony hacks and after the, just some crap that Sony's been going through, do they really want to have Robotech, a beloved franchise, a beloved series, especially because Robotech's an American thing, it's very Power Ranger-esque in the fact that we take Japanese stuff and then dub it over with US stuff. But it's a very loved series, and all the novels and all that stuff. So it's a pretty big EU, honestly, for Robotech. I'm not sure how many novels there are, but I see them all the time at used bookstores. I see tons of Robotech used, little small pulpy type of novels, which is really cool, honestly. But people are worried about Sony having the rights to this and how it will turn out if it even happens. That's the biggest question for me, is that yes, they acquired the rights, but acquiring rights doesn't mean the same thing as we're greenlit, or we have production going on, or we have, a final draft of our script. They're probably working on a script, but at the same time, it's just script doctoring. It's just preparing a script for something to come out. It's not even like, a finalized, hey, we're going to start looking for actors now, or we're going to start looking for people to come in and do this movie. They may be having a list of directors they want to direct the movie, but they're so early on because they just got the rights to it. With that, though, with backlash behind people saying Sony shouldn't have the franchise, I'm on that side. I'm okay with it. I think Sony can make a good movie, and they're fine. Those emails really freaking sucked, but I don't think that's going to affect their, making a solid franchise. I think they have a right. They have the rights. That they'll be okay. I think it's a franchise that's doable. It's a space opera. The mechs are the hardest part about it. The intense flying scenes. But I think stuff like I wouldn't be so optimistic about this being a potential franchise, because if it wasn't for Pacific Rim. I think Pacific Rim really set a bar for, robot-based mecha stuff, and that's not even a Japanese movie. No, that's an American movie, legendary, with Del Toro and all these people. So if Sony puts in the money, puts in the time to find a director, to find a writer who can embody this series or embody this genre, and can find stars that can also, flow within that type of show or series of genre, then perfectly fine. I think it'll be great to see, in theaters, we have a mecha anime movie. When did you think that you're going to have that? Besides Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim was blowing my fucking mind when it was like, hey, we have a movie coming out. It's about robots and monsters. What was that? Robot monster? Holy shit. And it came out and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I wasn't, blown away by it, because I didn't expect fucking, Alfonso Cuarón to come out and direct this movie. I wasn't expecting, there will be blood with mechs. I was expecting a robot movie with robot fighting. And watch Pacific Rim again. It's fucking hella anime. All the swords and the random swords and the fucking fight scenes. It's a fun movie. Now, granted, from what I've gathered of Robotech, again, I haven't seen Robotech. I've seen like episode here and there for research. I don't know any of the characters' names. I don't know any of the storyline or any of the plot line. I just know what it is, what series from anime, comprise Robotech and make Robotech what it is. But I don't know what the dubbing's about. But, it's a little more serious from what I've gathered. It's not Pacific Rim in the whimsical, we're just big robots fighting big monsters type of thing. It's a space opera. There's going to be drama and romance and, dire consequences for something happening. I imagine characters die. I imagine characters come in and fuck shit up. So I know that Robotech's a little more serious. It's a little more dramatic. And that's perfectly fine, because it's been so long. It's been so long since we've had a good space opera. I can't even tell you the last space opera that I watched that was like, oh man, this is really good. This is a really good space opera. Star Wars? I mean, I don't know. I just recently watched Logan's Run, but that came out before Star Wars, I think. So even then, I don't know. Battlestar, I guess, is a space opera, right? But that's a show, not a movie. So I don't even know the last space opera that I watched. That's how bad that's how dry it's been in the space opera genre for film. Granted, yes, it's a very, very hard genre to do. I understand that, because it's a span galaxies, and Robotech has mechs and has really intense spacecraft and airplanes and all these really intense air dogfights. But there's not enough space operas out there. There is pretty much zero mech the mecha epic scale stuff out there in film. I think that's really cool to see that Sony is even willing to think about doing this. And it's a franchise I want to succeed. I want this franchise to succeed because I really want to see where it's going. I really want to see more stuff like this. You know, I'm really excited to see it. For 100% sure, I'm going to see this when it comes out. Even if, and I'm like 85% sure it's going to suck. You know, it's like I'm pretty sure it's gonna be crap. But with that said, I'm still gonna see it 100%. Cool. So that's pretty much the news I wanted to talk about. I thought was really, really detrimental, whatever, to science fiction stuff. But that leads me to Leviathan Wakes. I mentioned it last episode that I started watching it. I was like on page 32 or something of Leviathan Wakes, James S.A. Corey space opera novel. Well, I finished it. You know, it's been 3 weeks. So I hope I finished it. It's a big book. I did finish it. Again, a mix between audiobook and actually reading the actual novel. Audiobook in the car and then at home the novel. And I'm gonna go Leviathan Wakes. The front cover has the blurb from George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame, saying it's been like a good damn long time since we had a space opera or something like that, a really good space opera. And I agree. You know, I haven't read, a ton of classic space opera novels. I read a couple here and there, and I'm listening to Dune, all this kind of stuff. So I know I get it. Maybe my idea of space opera is a little bit different because I grew up watching Gundam, which is space opera, or Captain Harlock, which is space opera, or about a spaceship Yamato or something like that, right? So I grew up with a different sense of space opera, Japanese embodiment maybe, a lot more grandiose in scale. And here's the thing, Leviathan Wakes, I liked it a lot. Excuse me. I liked it a lot. It's a very, very fun, very, very old school science fiction novel, and I really like the characters. I like the bond between the whole crew. I liked a lot of the novel. I have gripes though. My first gripe being that, I'm gonna say this right now. Okay, hold on. Leviathan Wakes, I would give it like a, 4 to 5 stars or something like that. It's definitely worth reading. It's definitely a fun book. Definitely a good science fiction novel. Borderlining action novel. But Leviathan Wakes, my first gripe is that this is spoiler, by the way. Spoiler, if you haven't read Leviathan Wakes, it's a spoiler for it. If you don't want to hear it, skip this part, whatever. My first gripe with the novel is that the fact that the main antagonist, Protogen, their reasoning behind destroying the was a Ceres station or whatever, Eros. Before their reasoning behind destroying Eros, which is the space station, with an alien weapon called the protomolecule. The reasoning behind it was so lackluster, was such full of just that's bad. Wasn't even a really well described reason. It was just, here's a plot mover, we find an alien device, and who wouldn't want to be the next piece of evolution? Oh my fucking god, really? That's your reason? That's the fucking reason? And you're gonna have it all done in a fucking exposition from the main bad guy who works on the science program. Oh, fuck me. That made me so mad. I was like, that's it? That's fucking it. And then it's cool that it's an alien weapon, right? That's cool. So there's aliens in this universe. I'm okay with that. That's cool. I'm excited to see aliens come in and like fuck everything up. But then you have the protomolecule, the actual weapon, which is like a airborne weird type of black thing, like black filament type of thing, right? It infects humans, and then it turns them into zombies. And that made me so fucking mad. Because I'm like, reading and listening to this book, I'm super into this novel part. The part where Miller and Holden are on Eros and they're trying to get out. And there's this really cool plot about how Protogen's been cycling in this radiation stuff into the station to keep everyone there, to feed the protomolecule, and that was so cool and so interesting. They never went and did more backstory on that, but whatever. But it was cool. And then they start using the term like zombie, like they actually use the word zombie, and then they use the word vomit zombie. I got so fucking pissed off. I was like, just get through this fucking part of the book. Just skip this fucking part. I did not want to read it. Not because I hate zombies, because I don't think the word zombie and the word in my science. I don't want zombies in my fucking science fiction, man. And I get it. Maybe zombies are technically science fiction. I'm okay with that. I don't like that. That's the fucking enemy in this series so far. From what at the point when I'm reading this book, that's the fucking enemy. It's humans infected with a black filament thing that turns you into some weird thing, which is cool. That fucks you up. That's kind of cool, you know? I was like but then it turns you into a fucking zombie. And you throw up on people and you infect them. That's fucking 28 days later. That's fucking 28 days later in a science fiction space opera book. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't like that mix. I do not like that mix. I would have been happy. I would have been so happy if it was just people versus fucking people in space. But that being said, that's the bad guy. Okay, I guess I'm on for the ride. I already finished the book. I guess I'm on for the ride now. Maybe down the line, and future novels, you know, the protomolecule will affect people differently. Maybe. We'll find out. I'll find out when I get there. I'll let you know updated later on. But in Leviathan Wakes, that stuff happened. I was not happy about it, but I still was like, okay, I'm gonna power through this. That's my first gripe. My second gripe, it's a space opera. Or at least people are toting it as a space opera. I'm not sure if James S.A, the duo who made this book, if they have ever said out in public this is a space opera, but on Goodreads and on the fucking cover from George R.R. Martin, they say space opera. I get part of that. It's a space opera part of it. I get a partly space opera feel from the novel. Very few battles in space. Very few battles that span the universe. There's like one battle in space, there's like two battles in space. Let's be real. Two spaceship battles. Pretty much it. And then I know that that's not what qualifies as, that's not the only qualification for a space opera. But again, I grew up, my idea of space opera is different from the idea of Dune space opera. You know, Dune's a space opera, but it's different from my opinion. I grew up watching and reading Gundam, you know, where it's like you're in space all the fucking time and you have these epic, humongous space opera stories about, you know, Gundam pilot here and his enemy's also a pilot, but she's the one he loves. That's the kind of space opera that I grew up watching and ingesting. So, and I know that this term is so generic and you can have a billion different ideas, but I was really hoping from the cover, from the title, that I was going to have these humongous space battles, you know, these humongous with like fighter ships and with like these giant cruisers, and they have a corvette. It's a bomber corvette, the Rocinante. So they're going to come in here and they're going to blow shit up, and it's going to be epic. And they do that partly toward they have like one big fight scene that kind of just skid by it. And I'm not judging the quality of the writing. The writing is fantastic. It's just the plot, the story. I would love to see more space battles, more space opera stuff happening in this novel. But I didn't get that. The book doesn't have that. You know, you get over it, I guess. So Leviathan Wakes, 4 to 5 stars. It's a good book. In my personal opinion, in my judgment of what space opera is, it's totally less space opera, more space action, whatever, fantasy space action, more action adventure space, action adventure that takes place in space, or something like that. Still a great book. Still really enjoyed it. Again, the vomit zombie thing kind of pissed me off a little bit. But the writing between Miller, who, again, I have my gripes with Miller. Like, why the fuck does Miller care so much about finding Julie? Why is he so crazy? Does it really matter? I know it's his conscience, and it's like he's a cop for 20-some years, and he loses his touch with humanity. And I get that these women in his head are, his link to humanity, his conscience, and I get that. But it's like, why does he care about Julie so much? That was never answered. And then he dies, or quote unquote dies, or something like that. I don't know, man. I just feel like there are a lot of loose ends that weren't tied in well enough as I would have liked, or answers that weren't there, or even just reasons for things to happen. Reasoning, like why was Julie's ship attacked? Who had Julie in the fucking beginning? Did I miss that? Did I miss that part of the book? Did I miss that entire part of the book where they explain who kidnapped Julie in the fucking beginning of the novel? Did I miss that? Was that the UN? Was that the fucking Protogen? Who was that? Who the fuck was that? I don't know. James S.A. Corey. Who did it? Because I understand that the Rocinante, or the Canterbury, Holden and all his crew's prior ice water ship thing. I understand that they were attacked to set up the war, to set up something to cover up what was going to happen on Eros. I get that. I don't get who the fuck kidnapped Julie. Who attacked her ship? The Scorpuli. Who fucked that up? I don't know. I would like to know. I'm going to Google it after this to find out who did it. Give me more backstory. Maybe I missed it. With that being said, I finished Leviathan Wakes. I am like, oh man, I am really close to finishing a second novel in the Expanse series, Caliban's War. Okay, again, I can't give a review on it because I'm not done with it, but I can talk about it. I'm almost done with Caliban's War, the second novel in the Expanse. James S.A. Corey, sequel to Leviathan Wakes. I like this novel way less than I like Leviathan Wakes. It's not poorly written. It's not that the characters aren't the characters that I like from the first novel. They're still there. Leviathan Wakes has 2 point of view characters, right? Miller and Holden. That was perfect. I was getting story here and there, back to back to back. Caliban's War has 4, right? Holden has Praxidiki Mung. Hate that guy's name. Fucking hate that guy's name. It has Bobby, who was a Martian Marine, whose squad gets annihilated by a protomolecule enemy type thing. And then it's the undersecretary to something, Avasalarova. Christian Avasalarova. I can't say her last name. She's a UN, she's like an old lady, UN politician type of person. Excuse me. I absolutely hate 2 of those people point of views. Not that I can't handle multiple point. I love Tom Clancy novels. Rest in peace, Tom Clancy. And he has a bunch of point of view characters. I'm all about it. I just don't care for the politics side of the story. So I don't like Christian's story. Don't care for it. That's just my opinion. And then Bobby's story. I don't fucking care. What do you serve? Why are you here? I get it. You're a soldier. I understand that. Maybe when the book is finished, I'll understand why your story fucking matters. Because right now, I don't give a shit. Caliban's War, though. They took what I didn't like about the first novel and increased it by tenfold. They added more about this protomolecule enemy, which I understand was going to be the enemy throughout the entire series. I'm okay with that. I understand. But they fucking made them. The book opens up with a fucking protomolecule attacking Ganymede, which is a space station area where they make food for the outer planets, which is cool. It starts out with this protomolecule infected mutant thing that's like super strong and can tear people in half and can punch people and fuck them up really bad, and they fly across ice things. Yo, come on, man. Why do we gotta do that? Maybe it's because I just don't get it. I don't know why that's there. I understand that it's supposed to be a really intense villain, and it is. It's a really intense villain. I get it, man. I just don't like it. But that's just my opinion, though. You know, I just don't care for this protomolecule mutation thing. That whole story. And I know maybe if I don't like it, I should quit reading the series now. But it's like I really enjoy Holden as a character. I enjoy his crew so much. They're very fast and furious. Like, they've been through some shit together. Their other crew got annihilated in the first book. So over the past year and like 8 months or whatever, 18 months or something like that, they become like an unofficial family. And that's really cool. And the bond between Holden, you know, Amos, Alex, and Naomi is really strong. And that's really fun to see the dynamic between those crew members. But it's like the situations they're being in, like, why? What's the point of the I feel like the stakes of this book are so much smaller and just not as well written as the first novel's stakes. You know, because like war happened, which we didn't really see much of the war, by the way, in the first novel. That kind of sucked too. So we get to see like, oh man, okay, so war is happening again in this book between the UN and Mars. Spoiler alert: the UN started it, but war is happening, and this station is barricaded, and they're trying to find Prax's daughter, who has the disease. And she's kidnapped with a bunch of other kids who have diseases. And then the protomolecule's released on Ganymede. And then they have no clue who did it. But there's probably a prior sample somewhere that was sold by Julie's dad to someone. I just don't feel like that's good enough. I don't feel like that story's intense enough. You know, I don't feel like it's a reason really why. Why does Holden want to save this kid? I understand Amos grew up in that life. No, he grew up in a shitty life back in Baltimore. I understand that. I understand his reasoning for wanting to find this kid, but at the same time, it's like, yo, of all the fucking kids in the universe, man, this really is the story you want to. This is really the kid. I don't get it. I don't feel like it's believable enough. I didn't reel me in. Why? Prax as a story, I understand. It's heartbreaking. It's so cool. It's interesting. It's fun. I get it. Bobby's story, PTSD soldier from Ganymede wants revenge for her crew. Sure, I get it. A Christian, you're an old politician lady, you're doing your job. I get it. Holden, I feel like Holden's entire arc in this novel so far has been just the most, man, so generic. So just generic. I feel like, you know, it's like, okay, in the first novel, Miller dies. Miller's all about getting answers right now and shooting people. He is dead. Holden feels guilty, so in the second book he has to become that character, which in turn pushes away his crew and pushes away his girlfriend Naomi, his XO, his chief engineer, pushes her away. He realizes that when she threatens to leave, or when she does leave, spoiler alert, when she leaves the ship for like an hour and a half, he's like, oh shit, I have to get back to who I was before, because I'm scared, Naomi. I'm scared, and I was too cowardice to tell you that I was scared. I needed your help. That's so fucking generic to me. To me, I have seen that before. Maybe not in American space operas, but and I keep harping on this. I keep going back to this. I have seen this story before in Gundam, you know, and not like it was written badly. It was written fine, and it was written okay enough for me to accept it. But I've seen that type of writing, like that type of plot progression before. And I knew that this was going to happen from the moment Naomi says, like, you're trying to be Miller. I was like, God fucking damn it. God damn it. This is gonna happen, and she's gonna try to go away. He's gonna get her back by saying, I'm sorry, and that's not who I was afraid. Fuck me, man. So, Caliban's War. I'm enjoying it much less than Leviathan Wakes, but I'm almost done with it, and I'm also the kind of guy who has to finish things. So I already have Abaddon's Gate, the third book in the Expanse series, there waiting to read. I already have it. And then I have Cibola Burn, I believe is the fourth book. And then later this year, in I think June or July, the fifth book comes out. And it's a 9-book series, man. I haven't touched any of the novellas yet. I've only touched the main books. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited for some science space opera, man. I really like the genre a lot. My favorite genre in science fiction, and I was really hoping this could be like this could be my next big space opera series, and it's not bad, but I have things that just really I'm not on board with. But again, just my personal opinion. The books are still really good. I do think Caliban's War is not as good as the first novel. I was like expecting kind of like a Star Wars what's it called, Syndrome or something like that, where Empire it's the Empire of the series, and super dark and shit, which it's not as dark. It's not as, I don't feel like the threats are as threatening. I don't feel like as the reasoning that I wanted to see in the first book that wasn't even there, and it's not even there in this book. But I'll mention it when I finish it. I'll talk about that in the next episode of the podcast. I'll talk about how the ending of it and how I feel about it. But that's all I have time for. Oh, hold on. Before I leave, I'm talking about the Expanse, right? I'm talking about Leviathan Wakes, Caliban's War. I watched recently again the teaser trailer for the Expanse TV show on Sci-fi. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. Thomas Jane's an amazing actor. Love Thomas Jane. The guy they playing Holden, never seen him before, so he could be good, he could be bad. I didn't see who played Naomi, wasn't really paying attention. But like I mentioned on last week's episode of the Takes Those podcast, how are they going to show who's Belter and who's non-Belter? Is Thomas Jane going to be towering over everybody, or are they just going to say, hey, we're all the same height because of budget constraints? Also, are the ships going to be really well done, or are they going to be super crappy? What's it called? What's that show called? Defiance CG. I hope not. We'll find out. But thanks, guys, for listening to this week's episode of J at Warp Speed, the official science fiction nerd podcast for the extendededition.com, as well as the Takes Those podcast. If you guys want to see more of the show, more of the podcast, more of our other podcast, go to the extendededition.com or youtube.com/Take It Stubs podcast. Check out our episodes there, our archive episodes about movie stuff, movie news, as well as the first episode of J at Warp Speed, this podcast. If you want to see more of my stuff, you can follow me on Twitter at J at Warp Speed, or on Tumblr at jatwarpspeed.tumblr.com. Thanks, guys, so much for listening to this week's episode. I'll check you back at some point, hopefully pretty soon. Yeah, guys, check you later.